What is universal design for learning, and why should you, an entrepreneur, care about it? How can it help you better serve your students? That's what this video is all about. So be sure to stick around to not only learn about UDL, but learn how it can help you create more customers and a loyal fan base that will always be coming back to you for their content needs. So let's start off with what UDL is. It's short for Universal Design for Learning, which is an educational framework that is based on research into the learning sciences and cognitive sciences that go into teaching and learning. And it's a flexible approach to designing course content to make it more accessible to a wide variety of learners and accommodate whatever learning differences you might encounter. Really, it boils down to it's a way to design course content to be more inclusive. Oftentimes, you'll think of UDL and accessibility as people who are deaf and hard of hearing, people who have vision impairment or are blind, sometimes physical differences and disabilities, maybe loss of limb or other types of disabilities. You may also think of neurodiversity, so people on the autism spectrum or Down syndrome. Those all come to mind. But the thing about UDL is it serves everyone. The thing is, when we design our course content for the margins, everyone benefits and everyone learns more. The way we learn is different, every one of us. And so if we approach our content in a way that makes sure we includes marginalized groups and people who aren't served as often, it means we better serve everyone, even typical customers. One of the great things about UDL is it is not only disability specific, it is culturally inclusive. And what that means is that these steps that we take enable our content to become accessible by everyone, whether they have a different cultural background or they are a neurodiverse individual. UDL has three primary principles: engagement, representation, and action and expression. And if we approach course content with those three things in mind, we can improve how we serve our students. Let's go over each of these three principles a bit more in depth to get a better idea of it. So the first principle of UDL is engagement. And what this is that learners approach and are motivated to learn in many different ways. So the way they can be engaged with and the way they can be motivated to go through your course is different. Some people like more accountability. Some people like it to resonate more closely with their internalized goals. Some learners are going to be really engaged if you're super spontaneous, and some learners are going to be really put off by that. And other learners are going to be more motivated when there's a nice step-by-step process to go through the content versus having more autonomy as they move through and make their own choices. And the thing is, there's no one way that works best for everyone, but having multiple avenues to approach your content goes a long way with including all of your potential learners. The next principle of UDL is representation. And what representation is it is really a examination of how we learn and how we intake content and the variability that goes into that. You may have heard of the term learning styles and may even identify with a specific learning style. You are more auditory, you are more visual, you are more hands-on. And while there is some debate as to the relevancy of those, the idea here is the same, is that people learn in different ways, particularly people who may not be what we would consider a typical person. This is especially true for people who have sensory disabilities like vision and hearing impairment, learning disabilities such as dyslexia. And it's even important to note that there are language and cultural barriers to learning. And so one of the most common ways you probably heard people approach this is turning on closed captioning for their YouTube videos. And this is a great first step that is easy to do. It is not perfect. But what this does, if you have video content and you provide transcripts or closed captioning to go along with it, not only are you now making your content accessible to a very specific group of people that may have hearing disabilities, but you are also opening another avenue for people who might not have English as their first language to put that transcript into a translator and now have access to your course content. And even your typical learners might just prefer the transcript rather than watching the video. Doing that simple step opens up the possibility of learning your content to a much broader group of people. Now, obviously, there is no one method that is perfect for everyone, and that is why multiple avenues and multiple methods are important to include here. So the final principle of UDL is action and expression, and it's this idea that the way that we express what we know and the way that we take action on what we know varies among everyone. And depending on your abilities and your cultural background, that expression may differ. And so it's providing multiple opportunities for people to express their understanding of the material. Now, this might not be as relevant to you as an entrepreneur because they are going to go out and apply it in the way that works best for them. But consider highlighting examples of how people have implemented your content differently in the past. And this will help broaden the accessibility of that content being applied out to the world to your learners. So you might be thinking, Dustin, that sounds like a lot of extra effort and I'm already strapped for time and struggling to get my business off the ground. So why should I be doing this? What is the benefit? What is the return on investment for me? I want to tell you that and I want to go through that. But before that, if you are liking this video and learning a lot from it, I would really appreciate if you consider hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and turning on the bell notification. All of that helps me spread this information and keep creating these content videos for you. One of the ways that taking UDL into consideration in your course creation is valuable to you is that it expands your potential customer base. What happens is someone fits your ideal customer avatar, but maybe they are deaf or hard of hearing, and so your course instantly becomes inaccessible to them. If you make that accessible to them, that is one more person who's going to join. And the thing is, these networks of people are really well connected. They are going to have friends who might have the same interests as them, and they're going to say, hey, this person does a really great course that was entirely accessible to me, and you should take it too. Doing this increases your client base, and you will become known for creating content that is accessible to these groups of people. And you create superfans and loyal people who come back to you time after time because they know that you are consistent in delivering content that is accessible to them and everyone else. The second reason is it improves your teaching. Just taking a moment to think through exactly how you're going to deliver your content, how you're going to check in with your students on whether they are getting it or not, and all of those kind of things that go into UDL forces you to consider your content from different perspectives and ultimately makes you a better teacher of it. And third, because it's the right thing to do. So much of this entrepreneurial world is just blocked off to marginalized groups of people, and it needs to become accessible. You became an entrepreneur because you want to share a message. You have skills you want to teach. Let's make it so you can teach them. Let's allow anyone who wants to learn that skill from you to be able to learn it. It's the right thing to do, and it's the responsible thing to do. So I hope this helps you consider UDL, and I would love it if you left a comment below that lets me know what is the next step for you. What is one thing you can potentially do to create a more inclusive course? Or what are you already doing that helps broaden your customer base and serve more marginalized groups? I would love to hear that in the comments below, and I have another couple of videos up here on the screen for you that you might enjoy. We'll see you next time.